You are listening to the Weekly Dartscast. 1 hour 90.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Weekly Dartscast, the official podcast of the Love the Darts magazine. I'm Alex Moss, and once again I'm joined by my co-host Burton DeWitt. Burton, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing well too, and quite a busy show for you guys this week. We're going to kick things off by looking back at the World Masters and all the things going on in the BDO. We'll also touch on the Pro Tour weekend back in last week and give a little mention to the World Grand Prix as well. As we're recording this, it's midway through the tournament, so we'll touch on that a little bit later. And we've also got Lorraine Winstanley, fresh from winning her first major title, the World Masters. She drops in to have a chat with us as well. But firstly, we're going to look back at the men's World Masters event and a first major for Krzysztof Ratajski, the Polish number one. He's been doing some great stuff on the European Tour this year over the PDC side of things, but he's now made that big breakthrough in the BDO, winning his first major. But should we even be surprised that he won it?
I don't think we should be surprised that he won it. I mean, at least a little bit, because his A game definitely showed that he was good enough that he was a contender. Even when he had the run to the quarterfinals a few European Tour events back, that was only a couple matches. To have to put together, especially starting from round one, 7, 8, 9 matches, including 5 against top players in a row. Some of these longer format, especially at the end where you have to win at least 12 legs to win the title, we hadn't seen anything like that. So we didn't know how he was going to hold up late in a tournament, especially in a longer format. We knew he was good enough. We just didn't know, did he have the stamina? He clearly did. But beyond that, there really wasn't a surprise. He's a player who can average over 100, and he can average over 100 fairly consistently, or at least in the high 90s, which in the BDO is going to give you a chance in a tournament. That's what Glenn Durrant has done for the last years. That's what Scott Mitchell has begun to do, and that's what Ratajski's been doing. He's a player who, if he played the BDO circuit full-time, would be a top 10 player. I think I'm a little surprised that he won the title, but it's not not John Henderson beating Michael van Gerwen surprise. It's a lower level of surprise.
And a 97 average in the final for Ratajski, beating Mark McGeady 6-1 in that final. Mark McGeady, only the second player in World Masters history to lose back-to-back finals, the first since Richie Burnett in 1996. But yeah, I've got to agree with you there with Ratajski. We've seen what he can do on the European Tour. We've seen him produce these performances, but in the BDO side of things, in terms of their major events, we've never seen him have these big runs. But the way he was able to get past Glenn Durrant, who, for all intents and purposes, everyone thought was going to claim the title, defend the title successfully, made a decent start to it as well. But he just absolutely wiped the floor with him in that quarter final, where probably the best performance I've seen from him given the circumstances. And after he got the main man out, Glenn Durrant, the world champion, he never looked back from that. 5-1 in the semi-final, 6-1 in the final, and I think probably the last player to have such a dominant performance over those last 2 rounds was probably Stephen Bunting. He won it. I don't think he dropped a set in the whole tournament. So it's an impressive display from him, his best achievement in his darts career. But it looks like that World Masters is going to get him in the BDO World Championship at the start of the year, since he's not qualified for the PDC World Championship as it stands.
Although he'll have to choose, because I think if he plays the European Championships, that'll knock him out. Something we'll need clarification on. Now, speaking about Ratajski winning that, and you mentioned he lost, of course, if you guys can't hear, he lost in the semifinals of the Eastern European qualifier for Ali Pali. Is it bad, though, for the BDO, for Krzysztof Ratajski to have come in after playing? Well, he played a bit of both PDC and BDO this year, but he's played the Euro Tour pretty much the entire year. Is it bad for the BDO Ratajski coming in and winning this tournament?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of talk on this over social media of some BDO fans saying that he shouldn't have been in the tournament. I've seen reports surface elsewhere saying that Glenn Durrant was complaining about Ratajski being in the tournament. I don't think they're true what they're saying about that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's probably the first time we've actually seen something like this happen for a while, where you've got someone who's played both codes and then they've gone to the BDO, gone back to the BDO tournaments and won a big title. So it's something we haven't seen for a little while. And I suppose there's two ways of looking at it. You've got the BDO diehards who say that you should either play BDO or PDC. You can't switch from whichever to suit you. But I think if he's qualified for the tournament by right, we know he's won tournaments in the BDO this year. Although, as you say, he's played mainly PDC events, but he's qualified by right. He deserves to be in the tournament, and he's gone on and won it, and he's produced one of the best performances in terms of winning the whole event that we've seen in recent years as well. He's the highest winning average in the final since Scott Waits in 2011, who had that 100 average against DeWitt Winstanley. So he's won the tournament by right. He hasn't fallen over the line. He's put some great performances as well, and it's a great story as well, him winning the tournament. So it gave some good publicity to the BDO, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and I've wavered on this one. I think there's definitely some negatives to the BDO about someone who has been mostly playing PDC coming in and pretty much wiping the floor with the best players in the BDO, and that can appear on paper to be a negative. But Krzysztof Ratajski is a player who's been playing the BDO circuit for a long time. He's, until this year, really hadn't played any PDC darts. He's, of course, improved by playing on stage, playing in these European tour events against many of the best darts players in the world. I mean, he should have beaten Peter Wright back in May in one of the European tour events, and he's only gotten better since then. But it also shows the depth of the quality in the BDO, where a player who wasn't one of the top BDO players, a player who was a regional qualifier for Ali Pali last year, a good player but never a great player, is able to show how good he is once he has played against the PDC players, and it has lifted his game. And we've seen many players make that transition. Ratajski is just one of them. So while it might look bad on paper for the BDO that someone who's been playing a lot of PDC darts recently has come in and been able to win it, remember, this is a player who was a mid-tier player in the BDO not that long ago, just a few months ago. It shows how deep the quality of players are, many of whom are playing the BDO full-time, and Ratajski is just one of them.
Looking back at earlier in the event, we started off with hundreds of players to kick the event, and there were 16 seeds who got buys to the last 32. Quite a lot of them, though, heading out in their first game of the tournament in the last 32. Just go through the names here: Kenny, Dean Reynolds, Scott Waits, Jamie Hughes, Scott Mitchell, Richard Veenstra, Wesley Harms and Dale Fitton, all bowing out in the last 32. So that's quite a lot of the seeds going out early. Should they be wary, or is it more just the format of the tournament?
I think that's another tough question. I think definitely the format is part of it, because it's not a forgiving format. While we can usually think of set play as forgiving, when it's only best 2 out of 3 legs, especially if you lose a set on your throw, you basically have 2 opportunities to break as opposed to 3. All it takes is, all right, if you've just broken the other person and want to set on their throw, you just got to hold your throw twice and you've won the set. And that's not forgiving. Which is also what made Stephen Bunting, as you mentioned, winning the title without chopping a set so impressive. It's a format that you can easily find yourself in a big hole just by going on a very short 5-minute lull. And so I think the format's part of it. But beyond that, I'm not really worried for at least some of them. Scott Mitchell, he had a tough draw against Tony O'Shea. And yes, Tony O'Shea hasn't had the best of years, but Tony O'Shea probably should have made the quarterfinals. He missed I think, 5 match starts against Jim Williams in the last 16 and made a good showing of himself this past weekend. And is a player who in the past has known how to get over the line at least before the final. Scott Waits has been out of match form for a while. He hasn't played that much this year, but he usually gets better as the year goes on. I'm not necessarily worried for him. Everyone else, you can write it off as a bad day. I mean, Richard Veenstra, he had the toughest draw. He played Krzysztof Ratajski. Dean Reynolds played Toon Gravy, who's a decent player. I'm not really going to look that much into the players who lost in the last 32. I think the format was part of it. I also think the timing, midweek, especially after you just played a couple of big tournaments the previous weekend, it was just the timing and everything about this was conducive for upsets. And it happened on the ladies' side as well, which we'll talk about later.
Yes, and there's an argument either side, really, where you can say with the seeds, they've got that bye to the last 32. They haven't got to play that first day, which is a bit of a minefield, winning however many games it is, 6-7 games to get through to that final stage and get onto the stage on the final couple of days. It's sort of like a tournament in itself where you've got to win through all them games to get through to that final stage. But then on the other side of things, you can say, well, they've had that day of basically match practice. They're sort of hardened going into that last 32, whereas all the other players, they're going in cold. They've had a day where I think they had a couple of tournaments before that. They kicked off the World Masters, but then they've had that day where, apart from if they were doing some practice on the practice boards or back in their hotel, they've had a day basically resting, no match practice. So they've gone up from them heights of playing in them tournaments, having all that match practice, to then having that day off is sort of a different scenario they've got to deal with. As I say earlier, as we're recording this, is midway through the early stages of the World Grand Prix. The first round has finished, and they're talking about this is an unforgiving format, best of 3 sets, double in, double out. You could argue that the World Masters, especially these early rounds, are even more difficult, as you've explained there, where it's best of 3 legs in a set, and if you get broken in that first leg, then your opponent is thrown for the set just like that. And so I think personally that the World Masters format is probably more difficult, especially in the early rounds where it's best of 5 sets.
Now, someone who took advantage of that unforgiving format was Cameron Menzies. He made it all the way to the semifinals at the World Masters, and that's after, over the weekend, making the final of the British Open, where he lost to his compatriot Ross Montgomery into the final. And it's completed what was really a fantastic 6 weeks for him, starting by winning the Scottish Classic, winning, I think he won another 2 ranking events in September, made the finals of 2 rather in September, and the semifinals of the World Masters. And we had him on the show a while ago. Is he now a threat for Lakeside, and possibly, because they haven't officially announced the qualifiers yet, but possibly also a threat for the Grand Slam?
Absolutely, and he's been one of the success stories of 2017. We speak quite a bit about Rob Cross, probably not going to speak about him quite as much this week, given his early exit in the World Grand Prix. But if you look at the BDO side of things, you'd say Cameron Menzies has been one of the most the breakthrough players really this year, considering that, looking back at his record, he's played BDO events dating back to as far as 2007, even before that, but he's not played as consistently, or he's not been as prolific on the circuit. He's played in the odd events. The Scottish Open is one back where he lives. Played in more of the local events, but this year he's been quite prolific on the circuit. He's gone out to Poland, he's gone out to Belgium, he's gone all across Europe to play in these events now, and he's starting to reap the rewards. We had him on just after he won the Scottish Open, one of the bigger open events on the BDO calendar back in February, and since then he's kicked on. I don't know if he's got a sponsor on board that's helping him play in all these events, but as I say, it's certainly reaping the rewards for him now. And I think we're not, as you say, we're not 100% sure if he's in the Grand Slam, but if he has, then that's a brilliant achievement to have got in that in his first 6-7 months playing BDO darts more frequently. So he's done brilliant there, and he's definitely got to be one of the players to watch out for at Lakeside. I think he's beaten the who's who of the BDO guys at the moment. He's got them wins under his belt. He's had a big run in the TV event, the semi-finals of the World Masters. So if he can keep that up, keep that consistency up, and keep improving like he has done, then definitely he's got to go into Lakeside as an outside favourite to do well.
Yeah, and he's done most of this just in the last month and a half. If you go back to mid-August, he was ranked, I think, 24th in the BDO, which put him right on the cusp of qualification for Lakeside. Now he's the 8th seed, and he's actually gone up in the rankings since then, since the World Masters doesn't count for the rankings, although Ratajski, as the World Master, gets an automatic invite. He's up to now 5th in the BDO rankings. That's a gain of 19 places in the space of a month and a half. That's just fantastic, and he had the performances to back it up. I mean, he averaged 97 against McGrath. He averaged over 90 in 3 of his 4 matches. It was a high quality over the entire weekend, and what was really his first real big TV event at the World Masters. And that was after having had a good weekend where he came within a leg of winning. So he had a good weekend, and it's just another one. It's been a great run of form. Now, can he keep this going? That is a good question. If he can keep it going, if he can match these performances over the next few months and show that this isn't just a hot spell, then yes, he's a contender at Lakeside. But Lakeside's something different. Lakeside isn't just, 10 legs and you can win a match. It's not 8. By the finals, you're having to win at least 21 legs, probably more. That's a long format that he has never had to do before, and it's a pressure he's never had to deal with before. Can he do it? Well, this past weekend shows he has the ability, but he doesn't have the experience yet, so it's tough to say if he's a threat. He has the game, and if he keeps this up, he has the confidence, but I'm not yet ready to say he is a real threat to win Lakeside.
moving over to the ladies' side, we're going to have Lorraine Winstanley on as our guest shortly, but let's just talk about her first major title win in the World Masters. Is she now the Lakeside favourite, do you think, going into the start of the year?
In my book, she is. At least co-favourite. I'll put it at that. Because Lisa Ashton is still the best player on the big stage. No one has an A game to match Lisa Ashton's A game. But Lisa Ashton hasn't reached her A game nearly as much this year as she had in the past. She was far from convincing this past weekend. Now, she had what ended up being a tough draw against Mensur Suljovic, who came within one leg of qualifying for the World Championships through the World Championship qualifier, and probably should have at least made the semifinals, if not further, at the World Masters. She missed, I think it was 8 or 9 match darts against Corrine Hammond in the quarterfinals. So Mensur Suljovic is not just some random player who, yes, we hadn't heard of, but she's actually a very good player. But she beat Lisa Ashton in that. But this is, a going trend. We talked about it a few weeks ago. Where there were 3 tournaments in a weekend, and Lisa Ashton made a solitary final. Lisa Ashton hasn't been playing as well as she was last year. Lorraine Winstanley has been the form player now for a few months. Dita Hedman might have more titles, but Dita Hedman plays more tournaments than Lorraine Winstanley, and Lorraine talked about that in her interview, which we'll get to later. Lorraine Winstanley's winning what she's in, and now she has that experience of winning a major TV title. She's just won the World Masters, the oldest major in women's darts, the oldest active major in darts, period. She's never been world champion before, and that's something that Lisa Ashton still has over her. But Lorraine Winstanley is the form player this year. There's no other way to say it. And I can't see how she shouldn't be the favorite heading in. That doesn't mean she's going to win. She has to get over the line. And the final's best out of 5 sets. That's at least 9 legs you're going to have to win. It's the longest any women's match is by far. But Lorraine Winstanley's the best player right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you made there about Dita Hedman's won more titles this year, but that'd be good to find out sort of like the tournament win percentage between the two players, Dita Hedman and Lorraine Winstanley in the tournaments they enter. I know just looking at Lorraine's record so far this year, she'd won the World Masters. She's just won, that was her 7th title of this year, and I think the most she's ever won is 3 in a year. So she's having the best year of her career, and she's capped it off really 2017 with winning the World Masters. And you've got to say, fair play to her. We've been talking about her on this podcast for a little while now. I know you have, especially saying that she's a player who could be on the cusp of winning that World Masters title. And based on our other predictions in recent events, including the World Grand Prix final predictions, I think you've pulled a blinder there predicting Lorraine to win a major title. But yeah, great for her ladies darts as well to see a new winner. And I think she will go into Lakeside now as one of the favourites. I think the main stumbling block now is going to be, we're now just into October. She's just won the World Masters. Lakeside's still 2-3 months away. What's going to happen over the next few months? I know there's not going to be as many tournaments. Maybe players have now qualified for Lakeside. They're not really going to be up for playing in as many tournaments. Probably want to rest and make sure they're ready for Lakeside. So that's going to be interesting to see how the next few months go, how the preparation goes. And as you say, she's never won the World Championship before. The best she's got is a semi-final 5 years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how she builds on this World Masters success over the next few months, considering there's not going to be as many big events to go into. But if she can, as I say, if she can build on this World Masters success and go in with all that confidence of being a major winner, then I see no reason why she can't have a good run and at least make the final.
Now, like on the men's side, a lot of the women bounced out early. We talked about Lisa Ashton going out in her first match to Mensur Suljovic. Dita Hedman went out quarterfinals to Sarah Roberts. Fallon Sherrick went out first round also to Sarah Roberts. Aline de Graaf went out first round to Trisha Wright. Can you see any of those players, in particular Dita or Lisa Ashton, coming back and winning Lakeside this year?
Well, Lisa, definitely. You just got to look at her record over recent years in the Women's World Championship. She's maybe not as prolific as Trina Gulliver's been in the past, but you've got to say, considering how the standard of ladies darts since those early World Championships has gone up, Lisa's won 3 of the last 4 years of World Championships at Lakeside. So even though she's not had the best of years on the circuit, I know she's had more commitments elsewhere. She's been playing on the Challenge Tour. That's been more of a focus for this year, and she's got that sponsorship now with Red Dragon. So it looks like she's working on a new setup and a new dart with her new sponsor as well. So it's been a not the best of years for Lisa in terms of results, but as I said on the podcast a few weeks ago, if she could go the whole year without winning a title and win the World Championship, I'm pretty sure she'd happily take. That's by far the biggest event they've got on the ladies' calendar now, and all the focus now over the next few months is going to be on getting herself ready for that. There's no more Challenge Tour events. She's not going to be having to focus on those weekends, and she's going to have a few months now to get herself ready, get that perfect setup with Red Dragon. I don't know if she's going to be bringing out a dart in time for Christmas or anything like that, but she's got these next few months now to get ready for that. So definitely I can see her, even though she's not had the best years, as I say, she could easily, I would not be surprised if she goes and just sweeps through the field next year. But I don't think she's going to have it all her own way. If Lorraine Winstanley plays like she did over the last few months, then she's going to have a say in it. And Dita Hedman as well, it's going to be another one of them where can she get over that line, win her first world title. She's not had the best of times in terms of going to Lakeside each year, but if anyone can get to the final, she's been there 3 times, then you've got to say she's got a good chance as well. But based on the World Masters losing out to the quarterfinals, that'll just make her even more hungry to put it right at Lakeside next year, I think.
I would like to see Dita Hedman become a world champion. I'm at the point where I don't think it's going to happen, and she's just, as good as her results have been in the minor events and the floor events, she's gotten worse over the last couple of years in the TV events. And going out, I don't know much about Sarah Roberts, but that's not someone you'd expect Dita Hedman to go out to in the quarterfinals. And this is now what we're seeing at all the TV events. As far as Lisa Ashton is concerned, I would expect her to bounce back and be a contender at Lakeside. As you said, that's becoming her tournament. Yes, she hasn't dominated like Trina Gulliver has, but the standard is much better, and yet she's still won 3 of the last 4 world championships. And if Lorraine Winstanley doesn't deny her this year, you'd expect that Lisa Ashton's the player there to pick it up and make it 4 in 5 years. And if she plays anywhere near her best, it's going to take a real good performance from someone to beat her. Does she always play her best? No, and she hasn't been playing it nearly as much as she has in the past. But she has now the time to get ready, get back to top form, focus on winning a 4th Lakeside. And if anyone can do it, I would say it's her.
Right, let's move on to our special guest for this week's show. And delighted to say that Burton caught up with the newly crowned Ladies World Masters champion Lorraine Winstanley for this week's show.
I am joined today by the newly crowned Winmau World Masters Ladies champion Lorraine Winstanley. Lorraine, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us tonight. And obviously, first off, congratulations on winning your first major last week. What did it feel like when you crossed the winning line in the final?
Richard asked me that, and I was speechless. I didn't know what to say, what I was supposed to say. Didn't really know how I was supposed to feel. It was just, never experienced a feeling like that before, I suppose. So, yeah, pretty speechless.
And we could tell that in your reaction. Now, along the way in that match, I think it was the quarterfinals, you had to play your good friend Anastasia Dobramislova. And if I'm not mistaken, it was your first TV win over her. How tough is it to play her, and what got you through that match?
Oh, do you know what? We're so close off the hockey. But when we obviously start playing, it's every man for themselves. So she knows what I can do. I know what she can do. And I think that always produces a really good game between us because we both try so hard. I said to somebody the other day, you know, it's not always about the winning. You just don't want to get up there and play like a muppet. You just want to play well. But I do particularly find it hard against Anna because we are so close. And it's just a case of you just have to stay focused and try and shut off the emotion that you do feel, you know?
Now, you said in an interview during the tournament that this year has been the best year of your career. What do you think has been the main factors behind your good form so far in 2017?
Do you know what? I don't know, because I've not changed anything. I'm not going anywhere that I haven't been before or doing anything different. Probably, I believe in myself a bit more, I think. I know it's in there. I know it's there to be brought out. And just recently I've been showing how well I can play. So I think a lot of it is the self-belief and knowing I can do it. and sort of trying to hold your nerve to get across that finishing line, really.
Now, of course, it came after last year, 2016, which was, relatively speaking, a bit of a down year for you. So when the year started, did you think that 2017 would be so good?
No, you never know what's in store. You do rely on getting a little bit of luck, whether that's during the game or a bit of luck with the draws. But no, I didn't set out the year going, do you know what? This is going to be my year, because I didn't. Because in my head, every year is going to be my year, you know. So I don't know what the difference is as to why it's going so well, really.
Can you pick out a particular tournament or moment during this year when you realized that you were playing better, that you were getting the results?
I particularly enjoyed the Hull Open and the Hull Masters that was on the same weekend, because I played brilliant all weekend, every game, and I didn't get the luck with the draw there. You know, there was no easy games, and I think my worst game over the weekend, because I won one and made the final of the other, lost to Lisa in the other final. That game against Lisa was my worst game of the weekend. But I think consistency-wise, that proved to me that I've always known I've had a good game, but then sometimes I follow it up with a bit of a naff one. So every game that weekend was just brilliant. And it was then, and I just thought, I've had a really good weekend where it's not too bad if you can say your worst game is the final. It's not like bumping out first round. So yeah, I think I realised then it's been the consistency that I've lacked in my game, and I had it all weekend. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with that one, I think.
So you're up now to number 2 in the world, closing in on Dita Hedman at number 1. Is that now a target of yours?
Obviously, anybody would want to be world number 1. Dita travels everywhere, and I don't. I can't get to all the tournaments. I've got my own business, so my clients are very, very accommodating when it comes to my darts, but they pay the bills at the end of the day, so I've got to keep them sweet as best I can. And I can't afford to go everywhere. So if it happens, it happens. If I keep winning, it'll happen. But but I can't say I'm chasing that number 1 spot, because I'm not.
Now, you mentioned, of course, that you don't think you're doing anything differently this year, although you feel like you're playing more consistently. Do you think your game can still improve from here going forward?
There's always room for improvement, always. I think, just trying to not have those loose, slack darts, and hitting those doubles at the first time of asking. You can't ask for anything more than that. But yeah, I think no matter how well you're playing, there's always room for improvement. We're never all going to be perfect all the time, because that isn't feasible, is it? But I think some of it is knowing where you're going wrong. I have a lot of slack darts. If my first one goes, the others follow. And obviously that's a bonus if they land where you're actually aiming. But if they don't, it's just tuning them back in to try and get them back on target.
Now, going into Lakeside now, you have to be considered one of the favorites. What do you think you'll need to do in January to become world champion?
Win every game would be a good start. I don't think I'm going to alter the preparation, because December is always a difficult month for me. It's my busiest month at work. So I do very long hours on those few weeks on the run up to Christmas. The last thing I want to do is come home and start practice. In my eyes, I've got to want to practice. If I don't want to do it, I can't force myself to do it, because it becomes a negative thing for me then. So if I feel like practicing, I will. And if I don't, I won't. But yeah, I think the preparation side, I just need to keep the form that I've got. And again, I find that difficult because I don't go to many tournaments sort of between now and Christmas. because of work, really. So I've just got to practice when I can, when I feel like it, and try and hang on to the form that I've got, really.
Now, just a couple questions about the growth of ladies darts in general. Where do you see the future of ladies darts going, and are there any young players who you see breaking through in the next couple of years?
That's a real difficult one, because the standard has risen so much over the past few years that I think we've got a great product. The ladies darts is a fantastic product. If it's steered in the right direction. Ideally, for me, I would love Barry Hearn to do something for the ladies, because it is a good product and the standard is so high. It's the only sort of bit in his product that he hasn't got. But Barry Hearn's a businessman, and if it isn't going to make him any money, he's not going to be interested. So I don't know. I really don't know. I would love him to do something for the ladies. And as regards to the BDO, I think I don't want to play it down because I love it. But I actually don't see a massive future with the BDO for the ladies. And I understand that we're never going to be equal. Would never dream of asking for equality when it comes to prize money because the numbers aren't there. It's simple maths. If the money isn't coming in, they can't pay it out, you know. But as regards to TV in general across the BDO, I think the players do get a bit of a raw deal sometimes. And it's not nice to say, but I love it, and I still pay my money, and I still go, and I still support it because it's what you have to do. I think England Darts is making quite a good way forward, and they do support the ladies. The prize money is always good, and there's usually streaming, if not TV. So I think they understand that they've got a really good product that they're pushing forward, and they fight the ladies' corner as well. So which is really good.
Right. And just ending with a question or two about your husband. He tweeted yesterday that hinting that he might be making a comeback. Is there any insight you can give into that and his plans for 2018?
I think if I told you, he would kill me. No. I think basically he started to miss the darts, having had a bit of a break, and he's got a little bit of the buzz back. So he's spending some time on the practice board and just seeing how it's going. And I have no idea which way he will go, whether he will come and do some of the tournaments on the BDO or whether he'll bite the bullet and go back to Q School. I really don't know, because he won't know until it's final decision time, get your entries in before the deadline or whatever. I really don't know. It's all about how he feels and how his darts are going, because he's working now and he's loving his job. I think he loves his truck a bit more than me. So that will be a big decision for him as well, because he does enjoy his job. So it's whether he can juggle the two or what. We'll just have to watch this space.
And then finally, have you teased him at all yet that you're now the only major winner in the household?
I did say at least Winstanley has gone on the winning one and not runner-up. I did say that to him, but he's very supportive, and he quite often calls me the breadwinner. But he knows how well I'm playing, and he supports me even when I'm not playing well. But yeah, I think he is particularly proud of me at the moment. So that's always nice to know.
Well, Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the title.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Big thanks to Lorraine for joining us on the podcast this week. Now over to matters in the PDC, and just before the World Grand Prix got underway on Sunday, we had a double-header of Players' Championship events take place in Dublin. Rob Cross picking up his third title of the year, beating Peter Wright 6-2 in the final in Friday's event. And then on Saturday, another title for Mensur Suljovic, the informed man, beating Stephen Bunting 6-4 in the final. Now we'll start off with Mensur. Just a couple of weeks after winning that Champions League of Darts, his first TV title, he goes and picks up his first Players' Championship title. That's I think that's 3 titles now he's had in the PDC in the last year and a bit. Is he now starting to get better and better, and is he starting to get that progress again, do you think?
I think so, and it's just weird because a few weeks ago I was saying that I was very worried long term about Mensur Suljovic's future after he lost in the first match in ET9 or whichever number it was, and then went out his second match the following one, and his standards seemed to have dropped, and then he wins Champions League. Now he's done this. It seems like he's getting more comfortable with being a favorite, and that's what did him in at the end of last year. Whether or not he turned down a Champions League spot, that's beyond the point. He definitely was buckling under the pressure at the back end of last year. He should have beaten Mark Webster in the World Championships. He didn't. He buckled under it. He even buckled against Phil Taylor in the World Series after he got off to a flyer against him. The pressure was seeming to get to him. Well, now it's not getting to him. He just won Champions League despite the pressure. He comes back and wins his first floor event. He's getting used to being a winner. He's getting used to being that person who knows how to get over the line. He might not be playing any better, but he's more confident. And he's already one of the top 10 players in the world. Now he's as confident as he is good. And that, I think, overall is making him a better player.
I agree. Confidence is a big thing in darts, and it just seems to be going from strength to strength at the minute. Winning that, the day before he won that Players' Championship title, he got to the semi-finals and was annihilated by Rob Cross 6-1, but he's come back the next day and stormed through the field, beating Stephen Bunting in the final. And his second title in as many weeks. It took him almost a year to get title number 2 after title number 1, but he's now got that third title, and it seems like he's starting to build a bit of momentum into the rest of the year. As we were recording this today, we found out that he's got right to the World Series event in Germany coming up in a few weeks' time. So it seems to be just good thing after good thing happening for him now, and let's see how we can build on this for the rest of the year. Can he keep the momentum going into the events for the rest of the year? As we're recording this, he's still in the World Grand Prix, and he's got to be one of the favourites, really, considering his doubles percentage in recent times. He's got Steve West in the second round. That's his next game, and then possibly Peter Wright or Mervyn King, but he's going to be fancied to have a deep run there. And going into the rest of the year now as well, he's going to be playing in all the big events. And for me, I think this is a big time for Mensur Suljovic in his career now. Yes, he's got that big title, the Champions League of Darts, which is the top 8 players in the world. But can he improve on that? Can the heights get even bigger for him? That's going to be the big question for him, though, over the next 6 months to a year. I think he's going to be in the Premier League. That's sort of the way I'm leaning that at the minute. I think he's going to be playing in that. I think it's going to take some big performances from other players now to knock him out. So a big time coming up for Mensur Suljovic now, and he seems to be up for the challenge. He's won that Players' Championship title. He's got over a tough first round game in the World Grand Prix against Ian White, and I think all the challenges that are coming his way now, he seems to be passing them with flying colours.
Now, the player he beat in the final was Stephen Bunting. Bunting, of course, got out to a 3-leg lead in that final with 2 breaks of throw before Suljovic came back. And as of the time we recorded, Bunting did go out in the first round of the Grand Prix, but had match starts against Peter Wright. And it's a part of a continuing trend of showing that Bunting is getting back into form. But I think the bigger question is not just is he getting back to form, but can he get back to those heights he had in his debut season in the PDC in 2014?
It's very difficult. He's as we know, he's had a tough time of it over the last few years. He had that great first year when he came over from the BDO, having won the World Championship, came over, had some great performances, got the Premier League the following year after his first year, which is what Rob Cross is trying to do this year if he can have a couple of good runs. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for him once he starts sliding down those rankings. We've seen it with players before, the likes of Andy Hamilton, Wes Newton, players that we've seen get to the last stages of TV events, major events on a regular basis, and then sort of slip away. I don't think he's in that sort of category just yet, but he's in between at the moment. He's not in that top 16. He's not outside that top 32. He's just in the middle of that at the moment. He's in a bit of no man's land at the minute, and he needs a couple of decent runs to sort of stop that decline, get him back up the rankings. And I think on his day, he is a top 16 player in the PDC. I think at the minute it's just a bit of confidence with him. as you mentioned there, he had match starts to beat Peter Wright a couple of years ago. Would he have got them? I'm pretty sure he would have. I remember in his first or second year in the PDC, he drew Peter Wright in the first round of the World Match Play, and he put in a great performance and beat him. So I think maybe a bit of confidence at the moment, maybe a bit of just needs that luck, just needs that match start to go in that could turn things around. So definitely on the way up. And as I mentioned in a podcast recently, he won the Target Pro-Am, which is one of the biggest competitions in world darts. He's won that. He's got the confidence from that. Just needs to push it on now in proper tournaments. And yeah, I can see him getting back into that top 16. Beyond that, who knows? That's going to be the next big step for him in that top 8. But I think if he can start putting some results together, get that confidence back in tournament play, get that a little bit of luck, then yeah, I can see him starting to climb back up the rankings.
I'm going to do something I haven't done before and say, I don't know. I don't know. He seems to be getting some of that confidence back, at least on social media. He's saying he believes again. And he's putting in some performances that show that he really does. Getting through to the final, especially, the third day of playing 3 consecutive days in Dublin. He had to win through the European qualifiers on the Friday and then play 2 full days. And then taking a 3-leg lead on Mensur Suljovic in the final. Okay, he didn't close the deal, but that takes someone who is playing at some level of form. And he hasn't been doing that for a long time. He now seems like he believes, yet again, he can contend with the big players in darts. But as you said, you'd expect him to take those chances. 2 darts at double to knock out Peter Wright at his favorite double 16. A few years ago, he would have taken that. And he didn't. And okay, the darts were somewhat close, but close doesn't win you darts matches, and close starts to play on you. Close starts to make you think and doubt whether you're there. I don't know yet. I want to see how he bounces back from what has to be, on one end, a very devastating loss, but also a loss that he should get confidence from. Because yes, he lost, but he was playing the number 3 player in the world. He had a match where the number 3 player in the world played really well, and he should have won. He didn't win, but he should have won. And this is a situation where it just depends how you spin it. I think if he spins it the correct way in his mind, he can bounce back and get towards where he was 3 years ago. We'll see if he does. At this point, I don't know, but I'm going to lean on, yeah, he can. And if he can, then there's no reason he doesn't get back in the top 16 in the PDC.
Looking at other players from the Pro Tour weekend, we had some big runs from some other players who didn't make it to the finals. Who impressed you the most in the Players' Championships in Dublin?
There's a lot. And it's weird because other than Gary Anderson and obviously Phil Taylor, all the top players were there. But I'm going to go John Henderson. And yes, that's obviously in retrospect, after he beat Michael van Gerwen, it shouldn't be saying much. But John Henderson just had a phenomenal weekend, especially on the Sunday, where he had to play Rob Cross in the last 16. And Rob Cross was coming off of a day where he was completely invincible. He beat Mensur Suljovic 6-1, where Suljovic had to take out a 1-6-1, and then averaged 113 against Peter Wright in the final. Who's the only person who's able to beat Rob Cross on the weekend? John Henderson. And the other day, John Henderson made it all the way to the last 16, where he lost the last leg decider to resurgent Andrew Gilding. So I'm going to say Hendo, not just in retrospect, having seen what he did against Michael van Gerwen, but just at the time. That was a great performance by John Henderson, who's now playing what could very well be the best darts of his career.
Well, I'm going to pick out what are probably the easy answers to go with, and we had 2 surprise semi-finalists really over the 2 Players' Championship events. Looking at the Saturday one, Antonio Arsenas getting to the semi-finals. I might be doing him a disservice here, but I think that might be his first semi-final in a PDC Pro Tour event for, I think, maybe going back to 2011. Not sure if it's sooner than that, but it's certainly been a long while for him. And he picked up some big scalps along the way to get there. Richard North, a player who's still in the field for the World Grand Prix as we're recording this. Darren Webster as well, a player who's in some good form as well. And I think he had a win also against Benito van der Pas in the first round. So a great run from him. Not probably expected from many people. But then another player to get to a semi-final on the next day, Madars Razma, a player who's come over from the BDO this year. He had a brilliant run all the way to the semi-finals, losing out to Stephen Bunting in the semi-finals. had a good win over Gerwin Price, Ronnie Hybrex, Keegan Brown, Terry Temple, and also Krzysztof in the first round, and again a surprise run to the semi-finals for those two players, so I'm going to pick them two out.
Now, finally, let's start with someone on the other end of the spectrum, ranked very high, but probably not feeling that high after this past week or so, and that's Michael van Gerwen, who went out in both of the Players' Championship events, and then, of course, went out to John Henderson in the first round of the Grand Prix. Now, obviously, MVG's number one ranking isn't in any threat yet, but more big picture in terms of where his game is at. Should he be worried?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and a lot of people have been talking about it after he went out to John Henderson in the first round of the World Grand Prix. I'm just trying to think when the last time was that he went 4 PDC tournaments without winning any of them, and it's certainly got to be a little while since then. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. It was a strange performance really from him against Hendo in the first round. I know we saw him the day after. He's on a flight to Dubai, so he's probably not that too. He's probably enjoying himself now and trying to forget about it. But it was a performance that we weren't really expecting, and a lot of people had him back to get to the final, including us too. We didn't see him getting stopped in that double in, double out format. But Hendo was able to do it. His first win on TV in over 700 days, and he's only gone and won 2 in 3 days since then to beat Alan Norris in the second round. But for Van Gerwen, it's going to be interesting to see how the next few months go for him. Obviously, his wife's just given birth to their first child. That's a new thing in his life. He had all of August off to help with that and sort of get to grips with fatherhood, really. He's come back, and you've got to say when he came back on the European Tour, won those 2 events in style, really. It didn't look like he was going to be stopped in those European Tour events, and then since then it's just gone downhill for him, not qualifying through the groups of the Champions League, not winning either of the Players' Championship events, only making 1 quarter-final of those 2, and then going out first round in the World Grand Prix for the first time in the best part of a decade. It's a little bit of a slump for Van Gerwen. If he goes through the rest of the year now and doesn't win another title, then I think there are going to be alarm bells ringing, but even he's world number one, he's in this dip of form, but you've got to say he's going to pick up a TV title or 2 before the end of the year. If he doesn't, then we will start be asking question marks about whether this is the start of the decline of MVG.
Yeah, and of course the last time he went 4 events without winning, he went 6 after Vegas, but he didn't play in 5 of them, so I don't think that counts. But as far as events he has played, and this is the first time in 70 single elimination events, so excluding the group stage and Premier League events, where he lost his first match. And that dates back 23 months to when he lost to Mensur Suljovic in the European Tour in October 2015. There were worrying signs in each of the other 3 tournaments as well. Of course, you mentioned he lost in the group stage, but he didn't look good in either of the Players' Championships either. He went out to Vincent van der Voort in a match that he had opportunities in and just didn't figure out how to win. He got over the line in a match against Raymond van Barneveld on Sunday that Barney threw away, but then blew a 2-0 lead against Mensur Suljovic, and Suljovic just came back and won 6 of the last 7 legs against him. And yes, Suljovic is a player in form, but you don't expect Suljovic to win. You don't expect anyone to win 6 out of 7 legs against Michael van Gerwen if Michael van Gerwen's playing anywhere near his best. And this has been par for the course for the last couple weeks. Now, go back before that, though, and those 2 European Tour events, especially the second one of those, that's about as good as we've ever seen him play on the European Tour, about as good as we've ever seen Michael van Gerwen play over 2 tournaments. So it's not that long ago that he was playing really, really near his best. But he's not playing at that level as consistently. Should that be a worry? I don't know. Michael van Gerwen knows how to get himself ready for the big events. This is a minor dip, but it's also the first time he's had to deal with having a child. He's had to go into a tournament, a major tournament as a father. It might take him some time to figure out how to balance all that, but he'll figure it out. I wouldn't be worried quite yet, but I think he might be worried because he hasn't had to figure something out like this before. This is the first time he has to do that, but he will. He's good enough. He is the best player in the world, and as long as he takes the time to figure it out, he will. Anything else for this week?
Well, I suppose as our predictions for the final of the World Grand Prix, are both out the window after the first round. Should we have another go at trying to predict what the final will be on Saturday?
Sure. John Henderson against Richard North, I thought was yours, right?
It was, and yeah, I was joking to begin with, but I'm starting to think it now. We're 3 out of 8 wins of the way there, but serious head on, I'm thinking either Barney or Gurney to get to the final from the top half. Bottom half, I want to say Peter Wright, but he's not had the best of records in Dublin. I think it's either going to be Mensur or Simon Whitlock from that bottom half. I'm going to give you 2 names from each half.
All right, I'll do the same. I'm going to go either. Well, it's pretty much the same, I guess. No, I'll go Gurney against Mensur in the final, and I'll go Gurney to win his first major title. That's my pick.
There we go then. So apologies, Daryl, if you're listening. That's why you've gone out in the quarterfinals.
Or last 16. Yeah. Oh no, he already won. Yeah, so quarterfinals.
So yes, there are predictions. Our second attempts at trying to guess the final of the World Grand Prix. Fingers crossed one of us can get it right second time round.
Well, thank you guys for listening, and thanks Lorraine Winstanley for coming on. For Alex Moss, I am Burton DeWitt, thanking you for listening, and we will see you guys next week.